What a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to be here today with all of you at this sacred Anatta Festival. Coming together truly in a vast, a broad, a complete experience of yoga. Because when we talk about yoga, yoga is not only that which we do with our physical bodies and asana. It isn't only that which we do with our breath and pranayama. Yoga is how we live. Yoga is who we are. Yoga is a noun. It's not a verb. So it's not about actually what you're doing on the mat. It's who you are on the mat and who you are off the mat. Yoga is every minute of our lives. A yoga class or a yoga practice, maybe 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 90 minutes. But the yoga we live is every minute. And so as we come together, I'm so glad and so touched to be able to share with all of my sisters and brothers all over Canada, America, and all over the world, as we really unite in this fullness of yoga that is needed so much today. We're suffering. People all over are suffering. And those who are suffering in a physical or logistic way, lack of food, lack of medicines, lack of shelter, lack of education. These are people for whom that suffering can and should be helped and alleviated by us. It is our dharma to engage in karma, engage in action that will alleviate the suffering of all. And we'll talk more about that later. But for so many people, their bellies are full, stomachs are full. They've got education. They've got titles and degrees and jobs and food in the refrigerator, roofs over their heads. But they're suffering inside, suffering from a sense of aloneness, a sense of loneliness, a sense of separation. When we feel separate, we suffer. When we feel separate from ourselves, from God, from all of creation, we experience depression, anxiety, addiction. These are experiences when inside of us we feel separate. Separate from the truth of who we are. Separate from the divine. Separate from grace. We suffer. And we turn to drugs or alcohol or food or shopping or gambling or sex as addictive patterns to make us feel less separate. But yoga is the answer, because yoga literally means union. Yoga is, we can think of it as a reunion, a coming back together with the truth of who you are, coming back in union with yourself. Yoga is not just a union, as we say, of our nose to our knees or our fingers to the ground, but it's actually a union of that lowercase s self that individual self with the divine, with the supreme, divine, infinite self. And so as we do yoga, yes, our bodies become strong and healthy. But much more importantly, we, as these individual lowercase s selves, we unite. We reunite with the divine, with that truth of who we are, that fullness of the divine self. And so that yoga is really the answer to everything that ails us today. That reconnection, reuniting is the answer. It's like my favorite joke on this of the man who goes to the doctor and he complains to the doctor that something is really wrong. Wherever I touch, it hurts. And he tells the doctor, when I touch my head, it hurts. When I touch my stomach, it hurts. I touch my back, it hurts. And so the doctor does every test, every scan. And at the end, he calls the man back in and he says, well, the good news is there's nothing wrong with your head or your stomach or your back. The bad news is your finger is broken. And since your finger is broken, whatever you touch, it hurts. But the answer is not in fixing the outside world. The answer is in fixing the connection of that bone in your finger. And for so many of us, lives hurt. But we may blame things outside of us. We may blame our husbands or our wives, or our lack of having a husband or a wife. We may blame our children, or our lack of having children. We may blame so much. The interest rates, mortgage rates, traffic, inflation, our salaries, our weight, our waist size, right? All of that we blame for our suffering. If just my husband or my wife or my mother or my child would do what I want. If just my employees or my neighbors would do what I want, then I would be in peace. Then I would be happy. Then I wouldn't suffer. If just the traffic or the weather or interest rates or inflation would do what I want, then I wouldn't suffer. But this story, this joke of the broken finger reminds us the problem is not outside, the problem is in the broken connection. So here we are today in an experience where people are suffering. And again, we may blame so much outside, but ultimately that suffering is due to our broken connection inside. And so we come together to talk. The theme today is about self-love. We'll talk about what is self. How do I develop it? How do I cultivate love for myself? Why? What does it mean? So, self-love. Self-love is something that for a lot of people, even people who do yoga, people who meditate, people who are spiritual, for a lot of people, self-love feels really wishy-washy, right? I have a lot of people say, okay, I can do the yoga, I can do the meditation, I can do the consciousness, I can do the awareness, I can do the saving. But self-love just feels really wishy-washy. And is it necessary? And the truth is, it is necessary. But let's look at really what is self-love. Because self-love does not mean I love it when I get angry. I love it when I'm jealous and unreasonable. I love it when I lose myself and I get drunk, or I use drugs, or I go shopping. I love that. No, that's not what self-love means. Self-love is not an excuse or condone wasting even a precious minute or moment of our lives. Self-love is the awareness that this life, every moment, every breath is so sacred and so precious. And we've been given such a gift from God. And self-love says, you deserve that gift. You are worthy of that gift of life. You are worthy, regardless of what you've done, regardless of what has happened to you, regardless of whether you got up this morning and meditated, or you hit your snooze button and went back to sleep, regardless of whether you've paid your taxes, regardless of what you're eating these days or weighing these days, regardless of the thoughts in your mind, you are worthy of grace. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of everything. That is what self-love reminds us. Now, when we look at it, though, we have to look at a couple of different aspects, because we have at least two different ways of thinking about ourselves. And the first is what we call our lowercase s self. And that's this body, right? That's this physical form. It's the history I've been through, what I've experienced, the trauma that I've had, the challenges that I've had. It's my race, my religion, my culture, the color of my skin. It's my job, my career, my family, my relationships. It's the chemical and electrical pattern in my mind that we call emotions or thoughts or feelings. That is one way of thinking about the self, right? That's the who are you? And we say, oh, okay, I'm a 50-year-old female, sannyasi, born in America, live in India. That's my lowercase s. How old I am, what model this body is. So I'm the 1971 American model. That's when this body was created. Like our cars have models, right? So our bodies have models. Some of you will be the models of the 60s or even the 50s. Some of you could be the models of the 1990s or the 2000s. That's your model. Some of you may be the model, Canada model, America model, German model, British model. But that's just the model of your vehicle. That is the model of your physical body, where it was created, what model it was created under, and the culture that it was born into. So what was the gasoline that fueled that car for the first many, many years of life? What was the air like? What was the water like? What was the soil like? And what were the thought patterns like? What was the energy like of where your model, vehicle came from. The energy of your family, thought patterns, values, the race, the religion, the color, the culture, what we were told about ourselves, about God, what we were told to value, what we were told is valuable. All of that is our lowercase s self. It's part of the physical model of this ego. And then, of course, the education that we get, the jobs that we get, the income we earn, how we feel about that. Because, of course, it's all of the thoughts and the emotions and the feelings as well. That is all lowercase s. And we have to love that as well. Usually on a spiritual path, we talk about kind of leaving that behind, as in remember that that isn't you. But just because it isn't you doesn't mean it should be ignored. It is the medium through which you experience the truth of who you are. This physical body is what sits down with its legs crossed and its eyes closed for me to meditate. This physical body is the one that says in my mind, okay, let us chant our mantra. Let us do puja. That's this physical body and the physical brain and the chemical and electrical patterns that are taking place there that we call thoughts, emotions. So first, we have love for this. In Hindi, we say sharir ek mandir. It means the body is a temple. It is a temple because God lives. God lives within each of us, which means this physical body is a temple. And so in the same way that we take such beautiful care of our temples, we take care of our physical body. So self-love of that lowercase s self says, number one, take care of your body. Feed it food that feels good. Exercise it. Get enough sleep. Take hot baths. Be in nature. Do pranayama. Fill your lungs with beautiful oxygen. Do yoga. Keep the body supple, light, healthy. It also means, though, to have love for this very unique psyche that you have. And we spend most of our spiritual practice trying to actually become free of that psyche. But it's important to recognize it is a part of us. The ego, the emotions, the psyche, it's all a part of us. It has come to us for a reason. It has been built in a specific way in response to all of that which has happened to us in our lives. And so the identity gets created around that. The ego gets formed around that. So we have love also for the thoughts, the emotions. Doesn't mean we listen to them. Doesn't mean that we put them in the driver's seat of our car. But it means that we are able to experience love for that part of ourselves, to understand that we are doing the very best that we can with the tools that we have. Everybody comes into this world with a toolbox. And the toolbox gets filled by our experiences, by our families, by what they teach us, by our education system, what we learn there. And so, for example, if you are raised in a family full of love and patience and spirituality, you're going to develop tools of patience, of love, of compassion, of understanding. But if you're not, if you're raised in a family that doesn't have that, if you're raised in a family where your mother, your father, other family members themselves were so confused, suffering so much, that they couldn't give you those tools that you needed. That instead of patience, what you saw was impatience. Instead of love, what you saw was expectation, frustration, and then anger. That's what you saw. If that's what you learned, then those are the tools you're going to have in your toolbox. So when the universe requires patience, you're not going to have that tool. You're only going to have impatience. And so that's what you use. And then again, you suffer. And we bring suffering to others in our ignorance. And so the first piece of self-love, after taking care of just the very physical body with its needs for health, we also recognize the need of health in our brain and the creation of tools in our toolbox. And that's why. It's why we meditate. It's why we do yoga. It's why we come to satsang. It is why we go to spiritual places and read spiritual books. Because we understand. I need to be free of that programming, of those patterns. I need to develop these tools for my toolbox. But self-love doesn't say, oh, you're bad, oh, you're stupid, oh, you're worthless. No. It says, wow, you have been doing so great with the tools that you have. Yes, I understand that your toolbox did not have patience in it. Nobody ever taught you patience. But look at how you're doing. Look at how you're learning. Look at how you're growing patience. So self-love is to have self-care for the physical body, to have self-compassion, understanding, forgiveness for the mental and emotional bodies, to really understand that all of us are just doing the very best that we can. But then we realize, well, you're not the lowercase s self, right? We are the uppercase s, the capital S. That self which is infinite, which is one with infinity, one with the divine, borderless, boundaryless, eternal. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, cannot be burned by fire, cannot be wet by the wind, cannot be cut by knives. That soul, no knife can cut it, no water can wet it, no wind can dry it, no fire can burn it. It is unburnable, unwettable, uncuttable, undryable. It was never born, it never dies. That higher capital S self. We also have love for that. And that love takes a lot of different things. It takes the form of living the life in our lowercase s self in such a way that we can experience the capital S self. So for example, if you find yourself engaged in patterns and behaviors and habits or relationships that keep telling you you are worthless, you are not enough, that is not only a violation of your individual lowercase s self. But it is also a violation of your capital S self, because in those situations, as you keep telling yourself or repeating what others are telling you, not good enough, not worthy, not deserving, impure, as you keep telling yourself, it pushes you farther and farther and farther from the truth of who you are, from that experience of the capital S. So you need to break those patterns, break those habits, get out of relationships that are putting you into a false, damaging box by telling you that you're not good enough, not worthy enough. And you need to know the truth for yourself. Get involved in relationships. Have a sangha, a community that is committed and dedicated to embracing that full self. It also means that every moment and every minute that your brain is comparing yourself with others, is judging yourself, again, is a violation of this self, which is beautiful and wonderful. And yeah, it's going to be richer than some, poorer than others, prettier by some cultural standard than some, less pretty by cultural standard than others, older than some, younger than some, smarter than some, less smart than some, more successful than some, less successful than some. But every minute that we spend judging ourselves based on other people, because tragically we almost never compare downward. We almost never look at those who are poorer, less successful, less happy, living in more of a state of lack than we are. We tend to only compare upwards. So we look at those whom we think are more successful, happier, more attractive. We compare to them. And all that does is it tells this self again and again and again, not good enough, not good enough, not rich enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, not funny enough, not old enough or not young enough. And it is a violation of love of the capital S self, because the capital S self is one with all. There is no distinction. So there is no one with whom to compare. It is all self. So as you're looking for ways to be more and more loving with this, number one, stop comparing. Stop judging. Start accepting and loving. Being kind to yourself, not because you accomplished something today or achieved something today, made a certain amount of money today, did your random act of kindness today, didn't eat the cookies today, whatever it may be. Don't reward yourself for that. Be kind to yourself because you, even if you accomplished nothing that you can think of, even if you hit the snooze button until noon and slept away all morning, even if there is nothing that you can think of today that was of any value that you did, nonetheless, you still are worthy. Nonetheless, you still are divine and beautiful and pure and perfect. Just not awake or grounded or centered to know how to move through the world. And that's okay. That'll come. So have that compassion for the self. Have forgiveness for the self. We all make mistakes. We all do things that later we wish we didn't. We must forgive ourselves. And we must recognize that in that moment when we did whatever we did, we were not operating consciously. In that moment, we had been sucked up into desire, into fear, into our subconscious programming. And so our commitment, along with forgiveness, our commitment is to stay conscious, stay present, stay aware, stay mindful, so that in the future I may be more mindful, more aware, more present, and do these behaviors less and less, become free of them. So number one, no comparing. Number two, forgiveness of the self. Number three, forgiveness of others. And now you might think, well, why does forgiving others come in self-love? And it comes because if I'm holding a grudge against someone, inside me is tight and constricted and blocked. We don't forgive others because we think what they did is okay. We forgive others because we deserve to be free. And so the greatest act of freeing of the self, of loving the self, of realizing the self, is forgiving others, is recognizing you did what you did because of your toolbox. You didn't have the tools that you needed to move through that moment. But just because you walked through my life unskillful, unintelligent, uncompassionate, impatient, that doesn't mean that I deserve to continue to suffer hour by hour, day by day. You did what you did to me because of your karmic package. But I deserve to be free. But in order to be free, I have to let go of what you did. And so we forgive. We forgive others. And we take care. We take care of our physical bodies, our mental and emotional bodies. We feed them well. We sleep well. We exercise well. We read things or look at things or listen to things that make us feel connected, that make us feel one, that make us know the truth of who we are, rather than just aimlessly, mindlessly scrolling on our social media feed or changing channels with a remote control, rather than being a slave to someone else's algorithm, someone else who decided what we were going to click on, what we were going to watch. Rather than that, we take the control back. And we do so with love and compassion. We read things, listen to things, watch things that are self-affirming, life-affirming, love-affirming. We get ourselves out of relationships that make us think, that tell us that we don't deserve, that tell us that we're not good enough, that make us have to be a certain way in order to get love. And I don't mean get out of relationship necessarily immediately, but we start to look at our relationships and wonder, is it really good for me? Is it really helping me unfold the truth of who I am? And if not, then the first question, of course, to ask yourself is, what am I not giving to the situation? What am I not giving to this relationship? In what way am I harming the possibility of this beautiful connection? But sometimes you'll find that actually it's just the other person who, for whatever reason, really wants you to think that you aren't good enough. You're not worthy enough. You're not enough. And then we need to get out. We need to have the love and compassion for ourselves to know, I'm not going to live in this. And lastly, in our compassion for that lowercase s self, we move into the awareness of the capital S. And that's where we meditate. We pray, we do yoga. We engage in patterns of thought, patterns of activity, patterns of movement that connect us with the truth of who we are, that connect us with all. So we meditate and we serve. We serve and we serve and we serve, because in serving, we recognize that it is self-serving self. That there is no distinction. I as self, I'm serving. I as self, in another body. And that's ultimately the union that yoga speaks about. That union of the self to all. And so as we experience love for the capital S, that divine self, that self that is God when we chant, Aham Brahmasmi, so hum, right? It means I am. I am the divine. I am one with the Creator. I am one with all. I am that. As we chant, we experience love, deep divine love for God within us, for God everywhere. And we also experience love for all of the forms of self, of capital S self, of God in all. And so whether it's our fellow human sisters and brothers, whether it's trees and rivers, nature, whatever it may be, we experience love. Love for all species, love for all people, every color, every race, every religion. And when we experience that love, we move through the world differently. We eat differently. We shop differently. We choose differently. Because in the same way that when I love this body, I'm not going to take a knife and chop off my own arm, chop off my fingers. Because I know, hey, this is me. This is self. I don't want to hurt it. Well, in the same way, we stop making decisions, choices that harm ourselves in the world. So we become vegetarians. We become vegan. We start buying only organic and only fair trade because we don't want to harm, whether it's the animals, whether it's the children suffering and dying of starvation, whose food literally is going in the mouths of the cows and the pigs and the chickens, who become hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken McNuggets for those with the luxury to choose. But for every 16 pounds of grain that we grow, instead of feeding 16 people, a pound of grain each, a pound of bread, a pound of rice, a pound of pasta. Instead of that, we feed one person a pound of beef. Meaning when we choose beef over vegetarian food, we literally are saying, I deserve the food of 15 other people. Let them starve because I deserve it. When we are in touch with ourself, our capital S self, and love it, then we love the manifestation of that self in all of our sisters and brothers around the world. So we stop eating their food. We stop drinking their water. We stop dumping toxic chemicals in fields and farms that they are the pickers of the cotton or the fruit or the grains, in chemical-laden fields that cause them to get cancer and their children to have birth defects. We stop shopping with the motto of more, cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. And we start buying things that are organic, that are fair trade. Because we understand that women and children in sweatshops in third world countries are our self. And as we love that self, we love them. And so we start insisting that that which we buy is fair trade and is from companies who are doing business consciously. And we start to love ourselves in Mother Earth, in the trees, in the rivers, in the air, in the soil, in the leaves. And so we stop polluting this environment. We stop allowing the trees to be cut, the rivers to be polluted, to be drained. We see ourselves and love ourselves in every aspect of creation. So let us practice every minute and every moment. First, to love this individual being. And then to love this infinite being who exists in all. And let us practice gratitude. Gratitude is one of the greatest practices. Easiest, least expensive. It's free. Shortest, quickest, simplest practices. Just say thank you. Thank you to God for everything, for your body, for the health that you've got, for the water coming out of your taps, for people who love you, for people you love, for the sun shining above, for the opportunity to attend festivals like this, to dive into your spiritual practice. We love. We love, and then we're grateful for the opportunity to. And allow that heart, allow that overflowing, grateful heart to truly overflow onto all of those around you. But begin with the simple practices that we spoke about. Begin with loving this body, this brain, this mind, this psyche, this history, this identity. Love it. Have compassion. Appreciate yourself. And then, of course, recognize that isn't who you are. Who you are is infinite and whole, perfect, divine. And our hearts expand and expand to love that. And then we love all, because all are sacred. With the few moments that we have left, I'm I'm happy to open it up to any questions if there are any, to take them at this time. And I know Victor was going to help us if there are questions from the beautiful audience gathered from all over the world. Vincent?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Not Victor, Vincent. Yes. Are there questions that have come?
There was some people, but there's no question for now. If
Wonderful.
anyone have question, I do have a thank you by Annie.
Wonderful.
I do also have.
If
Go
there
ahead.
aren't, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there aren't questions now, people can also keep asking them at other dates. I'm live online, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. We do a live meditation on Mondays and Fridays, and a live question and answer satsang on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's on Facebook, on my Facebook page, SADHVIJI Saraswati. And you can ask questions then. You can come up onto the screen. We have a way for you to come up onto the screen and ask your questions there. We also do an Instagram live every Sunday called Sacred Sundays. And that also enables you to come up online live and ask questions. So the Facebook lives are at 8 o'clock in the morning. No, sorry, 7:30 in the morning. 7:30 in the morning in California, which is 10:30 in the morning in Quebec. And that's 8 p.m. in the evening, of course, in India. The Instagram live is half an hour later. That's at 8 in the morning in California, 11 in Quebec, and 8:30 in India. So if you don't have questions now, but you do have questions later on, feel free to ask them in those satsangs. And if you're looking for answers, there's a whole library. We've got a whole library on Facebook, on my website, sadhviji.org. And I know a lot of people are shy in the moment to ask questions, so don't worry about that. But just know that there are lots and lots of people just like you all over the world who have asked these questions. And they are there already for you to see answers. And then the opportunities are there for you to join us live and ask any new questions as well.
There's a Laura who's telling you that you're so inspiring.
It's truly just God's grace. It's such a beautiful, beautiful grace and blessing.
Well, if there's not anything else, I guess I must say thank you to you.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much, Vincent, Alex, your whole team. It's been such a joy to be with you.
Thank you very much.